I'm Jovana, 36 years old at the moment. And when I was asked about my life path and my life crossroad, I was thinking a little bit which of those crossroads moments to choose. And then I realized probably most important one was also one of the most recent ones. The one that happened almost 4 years ago, when I decided, after having 10 years of work experience in the field that I loved, that I adored, that I felt very good at, and that I was very good at, suddenly I felt strong lack of decreasement of motivation. Really, for a short time, I felt like I would be fake if I keep working in that field. And it's important to say that field was project management in civil society organization, which means that I was contributing to important social changes. Some of them were educational reform, some of them were public administration reform, some of them were community building. And I'm sure that I was not only good at, but also felt good while doing those kind of jobs, because in a way it was one job but a lot of activities involved. I always felt good because I was true myself while I was doing any of those activities. I was always motivated, or always believed that that little contribution to society will have its effect. And when I felt that lack of motivation, I didn't want to put that version of myself in a job that I still consider as almost sacred in a way, because it's um, important, and not only important, but also it's magical. I dare to say magical, because with just a little contribution, I used to be able to see effect, especially among teenagers or young people I used to work with. So I couldn't bring myself less motivated. So what I decided, and just series of events led me to that moment, I decided to quit that job. Wasn't even sure for how long. And then I took one-way ticket to China, where my younger brother just moved. I mean, he used to live there. At that point, he was living there for less than 6 months, but he kept inviting me and just telling me, oh, come visit, let's see, you will love it, you will like it. So I went to China without any idea about the length of my stay or things I would do there. The only thing I knew is that I'm going to a little town. It's funny to speak about town in China, having in mind those huge megapolises they are living in. But there is little town, Chufu, which is hometown of Confucius. So Confucius is the almost main philosopher in Chinese philosophy, was born in that town, and it's important one, but really not well developed and really not big. There is also that rule that none of buildings can be taller than the main temple, and anyone can imagine how tall can be temple made 2,000 years ago.
How did you decide in the first place to leave everything and just buy one-way ticket?
Well, I felt safe. So, of course, I needed to feel safe. So, I felt safe since my brother was there. And that was just easy decision back then. Because I already had working habits, I was sure that that visit to China couldn't last longer than, let's say, 2 months. But what was funny, and really I'll keep that as one of my favorite movie-like stories, is that to Chinese people, I looked like Maria Montessori, which I realized during one dinner. So, just by simple chance, I had dinner among other people with owners of educational company that wanted to transfer their program more towards Montessori philosophy. So most probably they were looking a lot of pictures of Maria Montessori, and for some reason, I reminded them I resembled Maria Montessori if they would ask. So this would be a good moment for you to put Maria Montessori photo, because I will say I don't look like Maria Montessori. But just a person that I met there, a Mexican guy, if I remember. Yeah, he's originally from Mexico, but U.S. citizen that used to live in China for years. He told me, you know how all of Chinese people look the same to us? It's most probably the same for them when they look at us. So that's the moment when I just accepted that as a statement, and then I was just saying, yeah, maybe. But funny enough, after they had a talk with me and realized that I am into learning and I am into education and also some of my educational background, they offered me full scholarship for Montessori, Shanghai Montessori Academy. So it's a very nice and well-developed institution based in Shanghai, but they are operating under the rules of American Montessori Society. So that's the moment when my experience started. And that's something that I like to remember as my main pivot step, because in a way I stayed in social topic. I just moved towards younger target group, let's say, which really fit what I believed. On top of that, because during my previous experience, I used to work with teenagers and older, youngsters, but also older people, middle-aged people. And it was always something about education, something about what we can do as society, as small community. But what I realized even before going to Montessori philosophy, research and study was that the moment when we appear to share some of those ideas, it's already too late for some people. It's already too late to learn about society and what makes it magical and good. So I wouldn't think about teaching any of those topics to younger kids without this experience that I received just by chance. That opened totally new way of thinking, observing. After finishing that educational program in Shanghai, I actually conducted a research like comparison between Chinese traditional kindergarten education and the one proposed and developed in years after Maria Montessori. So she died in the middle of 20th century, but after that, her educational program became even more popular and people still develop that. I mean, they are working on that as we speak. So some of those ideas I compared within that study to some traditional Chinese. So we made even some curriculum, well, I wouldn't call that reform, but some of curriculum adjustments for Chinese kindergarten education. But that aside, it's not even the most important part for me. What I see as the biggest crossroad in that point is just the moment when I realized I am able to completely change what is educational background that I decided to take when I was 18, which now I know it's maybe even too early to know what you want to become when you grow up. Even when we are 18, it's still too early. Because what I realized, especially after studying some of those topics related to early childhood development, I also revisited my childhood and some of things that I went through. So just to mention, so when I was 6 years old, the war in ex-Yugoslavia started. And of course that I was totally motivated to think and learn and study and to know more about state, town, communities, and all those things. That's why I decided to study political sciences. But without that war, most probably I wouldn't choose that social-oriented topic, no matter that I'm still interested in that. But most probably that some of my decisions made when I was 18 were actually drafted when I was 6, and when all those questions were raised, when all those issues became visible and later on even obvious. So some of my considerations about what makes community, how we can improve life in cities, how we can change educational system or something like that, were all inspired by the fact that I saw one society and one state and one group of people ruining. I mean, just that demolition moment I witnessed made me think about what is made of. But thanks to this Montessori education and actually early childhood development education, yeah, this one particular was about Montessori, but that only introduced me to the topic. So I kept learning, and still, as we speak, basically, I'm interested in learning more about early childhood development, but I wasn't even thinking about that before. So that was totally out of my focus. I wasn't into that topic. And no matter that we are recording this at the moment when I still have no idea how those two topics will correlate, I still feel that as important crossroad because it introduced me, if nothing, that introduced me to the chance, to that option that I can also start learning something new. Maybe those two are just two starting. Maybe I will just decide to go in more psychological studies or something like that. But before, I was thinking that my career must be defined by what I studied at university. Now I don't feel like that anymore. And actually, I'm more open to some new knowledges that I might take even informal. Maybe I will learn that just by doing some personal research. Maybe I will start some official studies. But that was just that nice pivot that I like to call, something that showed me other way of observing, because maybe because my first topic was broad enough, so I could add some new approaches to that. But still, I believe that even after studying medicine, you can go in some humanities. Even after studying physics, you can go in some finance. And of course, you don't even need to participate in some official educational program to become expert or knowledgeable in some new topic. But it's good to have that background. I'm still a nerd as I used to be before, so it's important for me to have notebooks and books about that and all those things. But just the fact that this opened new chances, new perspectives, and new opportunities for me, not to mention also new way of observing parenting. For example, just what was interesting, especially during COVID year, I used to give consultations. I used to provide consultations for some parents that struggled with their kids. So just being ready after that Montessori program and after learning about early childhood psychology, I could provide that service to some known and unknown people, known to me or unknown people to me. So that's also a chance that I wouldn't have without making that step and taking that turn on the one of my most important crossroads.
What were the main fears, the main worries, and when you thought about changing completely the direction? And also, how much do you feel the direction is changed? Is it like a complete change, or is it somehow still complementing? And how did you deal with those fears and those doubts?
Well, one of the biggest fears, and now probably one of the biggest lessons after that, is I was sure that my step is irreversible, that me leaving my job is irreversible. That part remained unchanged. But me taking any further step was totally just, I wouldn't even call it important, because after, yeah, most probably that's explanation, because after being able to leave something that you used to build for 10 years, it was like for 10 years it was of course always way up, it was always some sort of improvement of my expertise, yeah, of my connections, networks, and everything. So it was building of 10 years of career. So after being ready to move away from that, what I start feeling is just that ease related to any further step. Not even related to this crossroad, maybe 10 years ago. So all of this happened 4 years ago. But maybe 10 years ago, I was thinking about those final decisions, those irreversible moments in our life. And I do realize now, as I realized back then, that there are only few of them. So my biggest fear was maybe I'm taking one of those irreversible steps. Now I'm not afraid of those anymore, knowing even more sure that there are only few of them in life. I am almost sure none of them is related to career, especially if you think about yourself in your career. Yeah, maybe some career will be ended by your movement, any of your decisions. Maybe you will end career, but not your life path through your career, because even if you totally finish one chapter of your career life, you can just orient yourself towards something new. I don't feel as if that is important as I used to before. Well, speaking of those irreversible steps, I don't want to scare anyone, and I'm speaking this from the perspective on behalf of myself only, and also other people that are not parents anymore. But I do believe that becoming a parent is one of those irreversible moments in life. It's more or less private information, but when my high school friend, elementary school friend, my bad. So when my elementary school friend died in car crash 10 years ago, I realized that his mother remained being a mother even without a child. He was her only child, and of course, the level of sadness, desperation, and everything she went through made her suffer, made all of us feel sad for her. But after revisiting her year after year, whenever I could, I realized that she's still mother. So that struck me pretty strong. And that's the moment when I start thinking about what are those irreversible. I used to make a joke that maybe making a tattoo or having a tattoo on your body is one of those. But then I met some people, especially during my travel, that had their surgeries and just laser. They used laser to remove some of tattoos they changed mind about. So changing mind about something that you decide to put on your body is allowed in the same level as it's allowed to change your educational background or just to give up some of your previously previously very strong ideas about what your life should look like. If I am able to meet, if I would be able to meet my previous version, literally, I'm not sure that that coffee would be possible. Would we have only few sentences exchanged, or maybe we would make hours and hours of just random conversation. I'm not even sure how my previous version would. First of all, I'm not sure that she would be able to be outside at this point, because most probably she would be in the office. Most probably she would type some report, and if she was happy, I need to say, even writing those boring parts of paperwork that is always related to project management. But still, this one feels uncomparably more free, herself, nice, chill, and whatever we want to put as a nice adjective to that. While that previous one felt oh so important, but just funny in a way, because especially after feeling that first lack of motivation, that decrease, almost visible decreasement in motivation, that previous version of me would feel very fake doing any of those activities. So that was almost like comic book moment, like when you are going to work, not even you can feel that your steps are shorter and shorter on your way to office, and then you just change the perspective. How I would deal with new fears? Well, having trust that I built. First of all, now I know that I'm able to start anew, and I didn't know that before. Since I started my career early, wasn't too early, but I was not even 22 when I started to work in all those offices. I thought that that's the only way. So even starting anew, because that part of job is also having several projects during 1 year, so you start anew quite often. But it was always some sort of tension and anxiousness around those new starts. Then I made that big new start, and I think that that's developed the biggest possible trust that now I have towards my life and my abilities to start anew. So I'm not even sure that those feelings I would have now would be fear or anything like fear. Most probably they would be excitement. Maybe I would ask myself, how do I feel about them? But those things that frighten me the most are now just something that I expect while making some step, but still not something that petrifies me as it used to before. Yeah, I think I'm living fuller life since that moment. And of course, like one of the biggest feelings that I maintain now, so it's not something that I just have. I maintain this feeling is that it should be even better because I'm using more of what life gives. And believing that life gives to all of us, I can even make a little metaphor that only those that dare to step outside of their regular path would see how beautiful that surrounding and landscape is. In a way, some of people that stay in their regular life path, they see only nice, well-built highway, but one of those that is even separated by walls, those soundproofing walls around very well built highways. So I believe that people are straightforward and going to some direction, but without even seeing what surrounds them. Those that decide to go maybe through some old road or highway or some other slower, they see the landscape, and I believe that life gives more in that sense. To stay in that metaphor, you can pick some fruit from trees while you cannot even see the fruit if you are on that highway with walls. But I don't want to promote making this step. It wasn't the easiest one. And whenever I'm asked about that, I say I don't recommend. I can tell you how it is. I don't recommend necessarily, like just go leave your. But if you feel stuck in that highway, maybe it's too crowded, maybe it's not even your way. So why don't you? I'm not saying everyone should. Some people know exactly where they are going, or maybe are not even afraid of realizing they're in the wrong town once when they reach it. But still, whoever feels stuck can take at least that third line to make a pause, to make a short break on that way. It's not a competition, it's not a race. At least it shouldn't be. Only few things in life are zero-sum game. So if you have your piece of cake, none will have. In those regular life situations, there's enough of cake for everyone. Really no need to fight and to race. So yeah, I like this metaphor about highway and cake. So imagine going to some nice cake shop. So no need to rush. maybe there are some other things you can eat before that beautiful cake. And it would be funny if this next crossroad is just me going back to some office, but I'm taking that risk. With this knowledge and with what I felt in the meantime, it wouldn't even be that scary.
First one would be maybe like understand what you feel, what you want.
Yeah, of course, like do some sort of inventory of yeah. So I don't even know who said that. I believe it's a quote, but someone said that if you catch yourself having several days in a row not feeling good about the office you are going to or job you need to start or just that moment of opening laptop to start working. So if you catch yourself in several days in a row not feeling well about, what I would recommend first would be making inventory of those feelings and what scares you or anyone about scares or puts you down, or it's not always fear. Sometimes it's just boredom. Sometimes it's just that. Personally, I don't think that boredom is something we should adjust to. It's also something we should consider as thing we maybe can run away from, or it's not even about running away. Maybe I don't formulate that properly, but boredom shouldn't be necessary in everyday mundane things we are doing. So if you catch yourself being bored or unmotivated or stuck, or so if you don't like the person that goes to work, because it's the same person that goes to bed, that goes to kitchen. So if you don't like 1/3 of your day, and usually it is around 8 hours in a day, then you should do something about that. I would even add you should change the bed for the second third of of your day. If it's very uncomfortable bed, that it's something you should consider changing. But for this part, that it's probably the most important, because we don't only see jobs as something that brings us money, we also see them as something that defines us. So that's the thing we would say about ourselves when we meet someone new. We would say, what's our profession? That builds the feeling or just the notion that we are what we work. We are what our profession is. But even if that is the case, even more important is to make inventory about your feelings about that. Personally, I don't believe it's the case, but even if it is, you need to know how you feel about that very important part of yourself. And yeah, after making that inventory, I would say the next stop, next bullet point would be to see what's the next unexpected step you could take, and then to see if you dare, if you are able to take that step, but not something that is expected. So not going to your boss to talk about the raise. So not going to your boss to maybe make another contract about your work description or something like that. But maybe checking some other jobs available, maybe checking some other countries available for that job, maybe taking a bit longer vacation, but something that is not necessarily expected step. Then I believe, oh, now I'm realizing that in that unexpected moment is where change is possible. And crossroads, if you think about that, especially in that previous metaphor of highway, they are taking you away from the main road. So it's not just small dilemma, should I go left or right in this one-way road. But crossroad is, by its definition, it's something that where you're going away from the main road, taking that or not taking that turn. But as they stand on the road, they put you away from it. So yeah, think in those moments maybe you just make a picture of literal drawing of Crossroad and think about things that would put you far away from that moment. So think about Crossroad as a drawing of it. That would be the one.